In Windham, a strange dichotomy had developed. The Ravenna newspaper always carefully separated references to Windham Village and the Maple Grove housing project, as if they were inhabited by two different species. As a graphic example, and this is absolutely true, taken straight out of the newspaper, on August 23, 1943, two boys were playing with pitchforks in the crowded housing project, and one, a 9-year-old, was speared through the eye and died on the way to the hospital. The newspaper reported that his family, and I quote, had moved into the housing project from Windham less than a month earlier. On September 16, 1943, Windham moved its first 6 grades into the new school constructed by the government in the heart of the housing project, a school that most of us came to know as Catherine Thomas Elementary. At the same time, a new plaza was constructed adjacent to the school, anchored by a Marshall's drugstore and an A&P grocery. Football got off to a late start that year because many students in rural Portage County had enlisted in an organization called the Crop Corps. Farmers whose regular workers had been claimed by the war effort could contact school principals for willing students to harvest potato, corn, and apple crops. So until the harvest season was over, coaches had no idea from day to day who would be able to suit up for practice, as the players were often exhausted from a day in the field. Coach Ken Folger returned to his job with the smallest squad in Windham history, with only 2 seniors from the smallest graduating class since 1922. Halfback Paul Turner and linemen Glenn Ball and Tom Wedding were his only lettermen. A bevy of boys, some from the housing project, dotted his roster, including new names: Charles Spencer, Bill Ohl, Dick Pardee, Art Chafee, Harry Hoskins, Joe Soltis, Dave Williams, and Ronald Smith, whom everybody knew by his nickname of Buffer. Folger had 1 week to whip these rookies into a squad scheduled to face defending league champion Manaway Village in their opening game. He settled on a lineup of Tom Wedding at center, Buffer Smith at quarterback, Paul Turner at halfback, Dick Pardee at fullback, and Glenn Ball and Harry Hoskins at end. Folger spent long nights that week mulling a game plan. And on the opening drive, he unveiled the strangest play ever seen in 6-man football. On a 3rd down at the 40-yard line, which was the midpoint of the 80-yard field, quarterback Buffer Smith took the snap from center Tom Wedding and flipped the ball to halfback Paul Turner. Turner spent the next 10 seconds scrambling around in the backfield, eluding one tackler after another until he finally turned and looked 45 yards downfield, where lumbering center Tom Wedding, whose yearbook ambition was to be a coal miner, Tom Wedding had inched his way down along the sidelines all the way to the end zone. Now, even though most centers spend their entire career squatting down with somebody's hands between their legs, on this one glorious night, that most ignoble of football creatures became the hero. Wedding did not even have to move to catch Paul Turner's spiral, a score that proved to be the ultimate difference in a 19-13 victory. Folger was to use this play, which the team nicknamed the Sleeper, in almost every single game that year. Now, usually it was Glenn Ball who sauntered the sidelines, appearing to flirt with the cheerleaders, then taking off for the end zone to catch Turner's pass, often thrown almost almost the entire length of the field. Oh yes, the Bombers were back. A second game win over Shalersville, 43-6, cemented that perception. Charles Spencer joined Turner as a scoring machine, as both tallied 2 touchdowns. The third game was trumpeted as a title game preview against the undefeated Hiram Huskies, but it was no contest, as Spencer again led the scoring in a 26-8 rout. Undermanned Deerfield proved to be no opposition in the next game, falling 31-0, with the Windham Subs playing the entire second half. This set up the next game against undefeated Garrettsville as the championship game of the Portage County Conference. There was one thing, though, that Coach Folger couldn't prepare for. The flu. Ripping through his small squad with amazing efficiency, a tiny virus accomplished what no team had been able to do. It reduced the undermanned Bombers to a dazed, weakened shadow of itself. With only 8 players able to even suit up, the starters had to play all 40 minutes. And Garrettsville, a much larger squad loaded with fresh substitutes, capitalized on it, administering the worst defeat in Windham's 6-man history. A thoroughly humiliating 42-0 thrashing on that miserable, flooded Garrettsville field, which they gouged out at the last minute from a cow patch. Now, a lesser team would have slunk off to lick its wounds, but not the Bombers. Having regained their health, every single starter scored a touchdown the following week in their 42-12 victory over Manaway Township. They might finish second in the league again this year if they finish the season with pride. Although down to only 9 players on the squad for the last game, the Bombers showed they had overcome the humiliation of the Garrettsville defeat, whipping Charlestown, which had finally found a coach for their team. Paul Turner exploded for 5 touchdowns, becoming Windham's first county scoring champion since Ralph Drumheller had accomplished that feat in 1939. 1939, Windham's first championship team, followed by the international champions of 1940. The Bombers had then spent the next 3 years watching other teams take home a championship trophy. They were getting tired. 1944 brought very optimistic news from the European front. The Allied troops commanded by General Eisenhower and Patton had breached the Nazi defenses around Paris. And further east, American troops entered Germany proper for the first time in history. The United States had the jubilant feeling that the war would be over soon and that our boys would soon be coming home. So, to further elevate war-weary homeland spirits, the War Department eased rationing on 17 items, including baked beans and baby food. In Windham, the war continued to bring changes. The County Board of Education transferred Coach Ken Folger to Aurora, once more leaving the Bombers without a football coach. To the delight of Windham fans, however, legendary coach Dean Everwine agreed to accept the mantle of Windham skipper one more time. And he had not forgotten a thing from his days as the creator of the most fearsome squad in the United States. Although Paul Turner and Tom Wedding had now graduated, Everwine had a slew of lettermen at the core of the team. His starters included Buffer Smith and Glenn Ball at end, county boxing champion Bill Ohl at halfback, Dick Pardee at fullback, newcomer Gordon Bertram at center, and Freddie Campbell at quarterback, a young man who had enlisted in the Army but was deferred along with team captain Bill Ohl until the day after the last football game of the season. Now, there were only 3 substitutes available to Everwine. Herbert Fector, whose brother Robert had played on the 1940 championship team, Bill Alger, a skinny 125-pounder, and Robert Garrett Jr., whose father was a fixture on the Windham baseball diamonds for years.